The room was dark, with red lights glowing from the ceiling. The smell of smoke and oil filled the air. Alien voices laughed, hissed, and shouted, echoing from metal walls. This was not a place for kindness. This was a slave market, and tonight, the crowd came for pain. A small cage rolled onto the center stage. Inside it, a young alien girl sat, her skin pale and bruised. Her clothes were torn, her arms tied. She looked no older than 10. Her eyes, wide and full of fear, searched the crowd. A large alien announcer stepped forward. He was tall, green-skinned. With sharp teeth and a cruel smile, he raised his hand to quiet the noise. Next up, he growled. A rare one, last of her kind. The crowd cheered. Some stood to see better. Others laughed and threw coins at her cage. Please, the girl said, her voice trembling. Don't hurt me, please. The laughter grew louder. One alien shouted, dance for us. Another said, she make a fine pet. Tears rolled down the girl's face. She looked at them, begging for mercy. But none of them cared. To them, she was just a toy. Just a thing to buy, use, and throw away. From the back of the room, a figure walked in slowly. He wore a long dark coat and a hood, hiding his face. No one noticed him at first. He was just a human, and in this part of the galaxy, humans were weak and poor, not dangerous, not powerful, just boring. The man stopped near the front of the crowd. He looked at the girl, and she looked back. For a moment, everything went silent. Even the crowd seemed to pause. She didn't know why, but something about him felt different. Not scary, not cold, just calm, safe, maybe. The announcer laughed again. Let the bidding start at 5,000 credits. 6,000. Shouted a fat alien with gold rings on his tusks. 7,000. Hissed a tall creature with red eyes. 8. 10. The numbers rose quickly. Everyone wanted the rare girl, not because she was special, but because owning her would be fun. A game, a showpiece, a prize. Then, the human spoke. His voice was quiet, deep and steady. 50,000, he said. Room went silent again. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Did the monkey say 50? Someone shouted, he must be mad. Another said, no human has that kind of money. The announcer blinked, confused. 50,000 final bid? He asked. The human nodded once. The announcer checked his tablet. His eyes widened. The payment is good, he said slowly. Sold. The cage opened. The girl stared in shock as the human stepped closer. He knelt beside her and gently held out his hand. She hesitated, then took it. He helped her up, careful not to hurt her wrists. As they walked away, the crowd booed and cursed. Someone threw a cup. Someone else tried to follow. But the human stopped at the door and turned his head. For the first time they saw his face. A scar ran down one cheek. His eyes were sharp, cold like steel. But when he looked at the girl, they softened. You're safe now, he whispered. No. One laughed after that. He led her down a dark hall to a small ship. It was old, scratched, and clearly human-made. Not fancy, not fast. But it was real, and it could fly inside. The girl sat quietly, watching him press buttons. Why did you save me? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed her a warm blanket and a cup of water. Then he said, because I saw something they didn't. What? She asked, her voice small. He looked at her and said, hope. As the ship lifted off, alarms rang behind them. The auction house was searching for the girl. But it was too late. She was gone. The human leaned back in his seat. He didn't smile. But his eyes showed something like peace. The girl looked at the stars through the window. For the first time in her life, she felt free, but deep in space. A red light blinked on. A tracking signal. Someone was following them, and they weren't coming to bring her back. They were coming to erase her, forever. Asterisk. The stars looked peaceful from the outside, but inside the old human ship, peace was only a dream. The girl sat on the floor, wrapped in the blanket he gave her. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw their faces again laughing, spitting, shouting. Their voices still echoed in her ears. Her fingers trembled. Her body remembered fear, even when it was gone. The human didn't say much. He sat in the pilot's seat, eyes on the controls, hands steady. The ship moved through space like a shadow. Slow but silent. He had no weapons, no backup, no friends, and now he had a target on his back. The girl finally spoke. "What's your name?" He didn't look back, but answered quietly. "Kane," she nodded. I think my name is Rel," she said. They erased it from the records. Silence again, only the sound of the ship's hum. "Why did you really save me?" she asked. "You could have bought anything." Kane paused. Then he turned slightly in his seat, looked her in the eyes. "Because you didn't beg for your life," he said. "You begged for them to stop laughing." Those words hit her like a wave. No one had ever noticed that before. She didn't cry out of fear. She cried out of shame. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the ship. A red light flashed on the screen. Kane leaned forward, checking the radar. "Tracker," he muttered. "They put something on the ship. Can you get it off?" Rel asked, standing now, worried. "No," Kane said. "But I can lose them if I move fast." He grabbed the controls, and the ship shot forward, faster than before. The engines groaned with effort. The stars became streaks outside the window. In a control room far away, on the auction planet, alarms blared. A tall alien captain growled, looking at the tracker blinking on the screen. "They're heading into the dark zone," one soldier said. "Let them," the captain replied. "Send the bounty ships, 3 of them. She's not allowed to live." Back on the ship, Kane pulled up a holographic map. The dark zone glowed red on the screen. It was a dead region of space. No law, no signal, no rescue. Perfect for disappearing or dying. "Why are we going there?" Rel asked. "Because they won't follow us too far," Kane replied. "Even monsters fear some things." They passed through a dust cloud, the ship shaking slightly. Rel held onto a chair, watching the stars vanish behind them. It felt like they were sinking into the void. Suddenly, Kane's screen flashed again. "Ships behind us," he said. "3 of them. How long until they reach us?" She asked. "They already did," he said. Boom! The ship rocked as a blast hit the rear engine. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Smoke began to fill the room. Kane stayed calm, pressing buttons, rerouting power. "Hold on," he said. "We're not dead yet." He turned the ship sharply, flying into an asteroid field. Big rocks floated everywhere, spinning slowly in space. The bounty hunters followed, firing again and again. But Kane flew like a ghost, slipping through narrow gaps. The old ship creaked, but it held. Rel watched him in silence. He moved like he'd done this 1,000 times. His hands never shook. His eyes never blinked. He wasn't just a man, he was something else. She whispered, "Who are you?" He didn't answer. He only said, "Get ready to run." Another blast came. But this time Kane turned the ship directly toward a massive asteroid. Rel gasped. "Are you trying to crash us?" "No," Kane replied. "I'm trying to hide." At the last second, the ship dived into a hidden crack in the asteroid. The enemy ships flew past, missing them completely. Inside the hollow space rock, it was dark and quiet. They sat in silence, breathing hard. Kane finally looked at her. "Do you trust me yet?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I'm still here." He nodded once. "That's enough." But just as things calmed down, Rel touched the ship's wall. It lit up beneath her fingers. Glowing faintly, Kane stared. "That's not normal," he whispered. The ship's AI spoke for the first time. Subject Alpha identified, unlocking hidden files. Kane stood slowly. "What did you just do?" Rel stepped back, confused. "I didn't mean to. I just touched it." The screen lit up with an old message in a language neither of them understood. Then it translated. "If you are seeing this, it means she has returned. Protect her at all costs." Rel looked at Kane, her hands shaking. What am I? He didn't answer, but for the first time he looked afraid, not of her, but of what the galaxy would do when they found out. Asterisk space was silent, but inside the asteroid, something had awakened. The old human ship sat quietly in the rock's hollow heart. Outside, the galaxy kept moving. Inside, time seemed to stop. Kane sat by the control panel, staring at the glowing words on the screen. Protect her, at all costs, the sentence. Repeated every few seconds, like a warning or a countdown. Rel sat nearby, her knees pulled to her chest. She didn't speak, she just stared at her hands. She had touched the wall, and it had answered her. Why? Kane finally stood, walking over to her. Do you feel anything strange? He asked. She looked up, confused. I don't know what's normal anymore. He nodded slowly. That makes two of us. The ship's lights flickered again. Then the ship's AI spoke. Its voice was colder this time, deeper. Signal received, unknown origin. Kane rushed to the console. What signal? The screen showed a wave pattern, old, shaky, distorted. It wasn't just a message, it was a memory. Trying to break free, Rel stood behind him. As soon as she stepped closer, the signal changed. The lines smoothed out. The sound grew louder. Then a voice played, but not from the present. A woman's voice, tired, scared, but strong. If this reaches anyone, know that we tried. They came for us because we remembered. Because we refused to forget. Rel froze. She didn't know the voice, but her heart did. She whispered, "Who is that?" Kane looked at her. "You tell me." The message continued. They erased our names, our history, our truth, but they couldn't erase our blood. In her, the last spark lives. The screen turned off. Silence filled the ship again. Kane leaned back, thinking, that message is centuries old, he said. Long before you were born. Maybe before humans were even allowed in this part of space. Rel whispered. Why me? Kane looked at her. Maybe your people hid something inside you, he said. Something powerful. Before they could say more, the ship's lights turned red. Another alert. Another visitor. Unidentified vessel approaching, the AI warned. Kane checked the radar. One ship, not a bounty hunter, not a traitor. Its code was Ancient. Stay here, Kane said, grabbing his blaster. He walked to the back of the ship where the airlock was. The other ship latched onto them like a shadow. No alarms, no weapons, just silence. The doors opened with a hiss, but no one entered. Only a small drone floated in round. Silver, covered in dust and time. It hovered in front of Kane, scanned him, then turned to Rel. The moment it saw her, it stopped. A blue light flashed on its side. Signal confirmed, it said. Alpha host located. Rel stood frozen. I don't understand, she said. The drone floated closer, gently projecting another hologram. This time, it showed images. A planet burning, ships falling from the sky, children being taken, and a final image. A baby in a pod, sent into space alone. That's you, Kane whispered. Rel stared at the baby, her voice shaking. I don't remember, the drone spoke again. Host memory locked. Unlocking requires neural trigger, Kane frowned. What kind of trigger? Before the drone could answer, the ship began shaking. An energy pulse hit the walls. The radar screamed again. Another ship was arriving fast, angry, and armed. Rel's eyes suddenly glowed faint blue, not bright. Just enough to notice. The drone backed away quickly. Alpha awakening in progress. Kane ran to her side. Rel, are you okay? She grabbed his hand, her voice distant. They're coming, not just for me, for what I carry. The screen flashed with a symbol one Kane didn't recognize. But deep inside him, he felt fear rise. This wasn't just about one girl, it was about something much older, much bigger. Rel looked at him, her voice now steady. I think I'm not the only one who is hidden. Kane stepped back. What do you mean? She pointed at the drone. It didn't come for me. It came for whoever saved me. Kane didn't move. The drone flashed again, scanning him fully this time. Second signal confirmed, it said. Protectors, too active. Kane frowned. I didn't sign up for this. Rel smiled faintly. For the first time since the auction. Too late, she said. You already did. Outside the asteroid, the new enemy ship hovered, waiting, watching, and preparing to strike. Asterisk, the stars outside didn't shine in this part of space. It felt like the galaxy was holding its breath, like something ancient had opened its eyes inside the ship. Rel sat in silence. Her heart was beating, but her mind wasn't calm. Something was waking inside her. Memories she didn't have, feelings she didn't understand, voices she had never heard before, but somehow knew. The drone hovered near the control panel, projecting glowing symbols. Kane stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, watching everything. Rel finally asked, "Was I made?" Kane didn't answer right away. He looked at her, really looked. She didn't look dangerous, she didn't even look strong. Just tired and scared. He spoke slowly. Back on Earth, before we joined the Galactic Council, we heard rumors about ancient species who left behind weapons, living ones. Rel looked down at her hands. I'm a weapon? Kane shook his head. No, you're something more dangerous than that. The drone beeped, interrupting, initiating memory sequence. Brace for emotional overload. Before Kane could ask what that meant, Rel gasped. Her eyes went wide, then blank. The ship lights dimmed, and her body floated slightly off the floor, not lifted, drawn, like gravity around her had changed. The walls around them flickered with holograms. 1,000 voices whispered. A city, tall and white, full of her kind, smiles, songs, a child laughing Rel as a baby, then fire, metal rain, explosions, a betrayal. The vision focused on a group of tall beings. Their faces blurred. One of them said, "They know too much." Another replied, "Then they must be erased." Kane stepped back as the memory ended. Rel fell to her knees, gasping for air. He rushed to catch her. She shook her head slowly. "They were afraid of us," she whispered, "because we remembered what they tried to hide." Kane's voice was cold now. What did they hide? Rel looked up at him. "The truth," she said. "The first war wasn't started by humans. It was started by them. They destroyed entire races just to control the story." Kane sat down, his hand over his mouth. "This changes everything," he said. "No one knows that, not even the Council." The drone spoke again. "Human genetic signature, recognized. Protector class, activated." Kane frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You are not just a rescuer," the drone replied. "Your bloodline was chosen. Earth was not found by accident." Rel's eyes widened. "You were meant to find me." Kane shook his head. "I don't believe in fate, but you believe in facts," she said softly. "And the fact is, you're not just helping me escape. You're part of this. The ship's I blinked to life. A new file opened, a locked one, hidden deep in its code. It played an old message. A human voice, male, aged, full of fear and hope. If you find this message, you've unlocked a part of our plan. We couldn't stop the purge, but we saved one, and we left her in the care of the stars." "The key to our past is alive," Kane whispered. "My grandfather flew scout missions before the war. He disappeared near this region." Rel looked at him. "He didn't disappear," she said. "He delivered me." They stared at each other, not as rescuer and rescued, not as human and alien, but as two broken links in the same forgotten chain. Suddenly, alarms blared. The enemy ship outside was charging its main cannon. Kane rushed to the controls. "They tracked us even in here. We have to move." Rel placed her hand on the ship's wall again. This time her voice was clear. "Defense Protocol 7. The fun." Ship responded instantly. Hidden panels opened. Cannons slid out from the sides. Glowing blue, the human ship was no longer unarmed. Kane grinned, half in shock. "You just gave us teeth." The enemy fired, but the blast never reached them. Rel raised her hand. and the shot bent around the ship like water hitting a stone. Energy danced across her skin, but she didn't flinch. Kane stared. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You're a warning." The enemy ship backed away. Maybe it didn't expect her to survive. Maybe it feared what she might become. But it was too late. The truth was out. She wasn't just a lost girl. She was living proof of a lie buried for centuries. And now, the galaxy would have to choose, forget again, or finally remember. Asterisk, the stars faded as they approached the edge of the map. Even the ship's radar began to stutter. There were no patrols here, no trade routes, no messages, just cold, forgotten silence. Kane sat in the pilot's seat, eyes focused. Rel stood behind him, staring out the front window. She wasn't shaking anymore. She wasn't hiding, she was searching. The drone hovered beside her, projecting ancient coordinates. A point in deep space marked only as Echo Station Do Not Approach. Kane raised an eyebrow. "Echo Station?" he asked. Rel nodded slowly. "My people's last breath," she whispered. As they flew closer, a shape began to appear. Huge, round and broken, like a city in the stars, left to rot. Pieces of metal floated around it like frozen tears. Some still had burn marks, others had bones trapped inside. The ship docked slowly, metal scraping against rusted doors. Lights flickered as they stepped inside. Dust floated in zero gravity. It was cold, darker than night, and silent. Kane turned on a small light, scanning the halls. Signs were written in a strange curved language, symbols that pulsed faintly as Rel walked by. The walls remembered her. She stopped at a large door. It opened without touch. Inside was a chamber full of data crystals, old monitors, and a single chair. The chair still held a body, long dead, wrapped in a silver robe, hands resting peacefully on. The chest was a name carved in stone. Rel stepped closer and gasped. "It's my mother." Kane said nothing. This was not his moment. This was hers. The drone hovered forward, scanning the room. Then it beeped softly. Memory sync. Complete. Glowing image filled the room. It was her mother alive, speaking into a recorder. "If you're seeing this, my daughter, you survived. They hunted us for knowledge, not for power. We saw what they wanted hidden, how they twisted history. We tried to warn them, and they burned our skies." The recording glitched, her mother's voice shaking. "You carry the last truth now, Rel. In your blood is the key, not to destroy them, but to make them remember. We weren't gods or weapons. We were witnesses." The image faded, leaving silence. Rel stepped forward, kneeling beside the body. Tears ran down her face, but her voice was steady. "I'll finish what you started." Kane looked around the room. He could feel something under his feet, a hum, a deep signal, pulsing through the station like a heartbeat. He turned to the drone. "What is that?" The drone replied, "Buried beacon coded to her bloodline. If activated, it will transmit the truth across the galaxy." Rel stood, wiping her face. She didn't look like a child anymore. She looked like someone carrying generations. "Do it," she said. The station came to life. Old machines powered up. Lights flashed through the metal bones of the city. And a low tone began to echo into space. Far away, across star systems, screens lit up on council ships. Messages flashed in red. Unauthorized broadcast origin, Echo Station. A hologram began to play. It showed the truth, the massacre, the betrayal, the lies covered up by power and fear. The same councils who ruled now had blood on their hands, and the proof was being sent to everyone. Military ships, civilians, even pirate radios. Kane turned to Rel. "You just changed everything." She looked at the broken station. "No," she said. "I just reminded them." Suddenly the ship's alarm blared. A fleet was incoming fast. Big, angry. The same rulers who erased her past were now flying to silence her future. Kane ran back toward the ship. "We need to leave now." But Rel stood still, eyes glowing faint blue. The drone buzzed with rising energy. "What are you doing?" Kane asked. I'm unlocking what they tried to bury, she replied. The station isn't just a grave. It's a weapon of memory. The walls shook. Energy surged through the station. The enemy fleet was almost there. And this time, Rel wasn't going to run. She looked at Kane, her voice calm. They wanted me to forget, but now the galaxy will remember. The first ship dropped out of hyperspace, and Rel raised her hand. The battle had not begun yet, but something much stronger had the return. Asterisk, the enemy fleet fell out of hyperspace like knives falling from the sky. Dozens of ships, sharp, silent, deadly. Their engines burned cold blue, their cannons already charged, but inside the broken station, there was no panic, no fear, only a strange kind of calm. Rel stood at the center of the memory chamber, surrounded by machines once thought dead, but now they responded to her, as if waiting for her return all this time. Kane watched from the ship's ramp, one hand on his blaster, the other gripping the doorframe. He'd seen war, he'd seen madness, but this was different. This was history waking up, and it was waking up angry. The first warning shot came from the lead enemy cruiser. A red beam slammed into the outer wall of the station. Metal tore like paper, alarms screamed, Kane shouted, "We have to go now." But Rel didn't move. She lifted her hand, and the air around her shimmered, not with heat, but with pressure, like gravity folding in on itself. The broken lights flickered, then burst into brightness. Old drones rose from the floor once. Museum pieces, now reactivated, they hovered around her, then turned to face the incoming threat. The ship's I spoke quickly. Energy levels rising, unidentified power source detected. Kane stepped forward, his voice low. "Rel." "What?" "Are you becoming?" She turned her head slightly, not cold, not distant, but focused, like she could see beyond the room, beyond the ships. "They made me forget," she said. "They told me I was nothing, but I was never nothing outside." The enemy fleet launched a full volley of blasts. Cannon fire tore toward the station, too much for any shield to block. But just before the impact, Rel's eyes flared with blinding light, and everything stopped literally. The blasts froze mid-air, suspended like frozen fire. Ships paused, drifting with no control. Even the station itself stopped groaning, as if time had caught its breath. Kane dropped his blaster, speechless. Rel floated above the floor, glowing lines tracing along her arms, her neck, her spine. Symbols older than any known language formed in the air around her. The ship's AI tried to speak. Error of physics parameters. Not found. The drones around her moved into formation. Then they did something impossible. They knelt machines, programmed with no emotion, no loyalty, now bowed to a girl once sold like scrap. Kane whispered, "You're not a weapon. You're a command." The enemy tried to move again. One ship broke the time freeze and launched another blast. But Rel raised her hand slowly. The energy turned mid-air and exploded back into the attacker. The ship crumbled in silence, like a paper model folding in on itself. Panic spread across the remaining fleet. Captains shouted. Ships tried to escape, but the space around them been trapped inside her presence. Rel slowly returned to the ground, her eyes still glowing, but now she looked human again, tired, hurt, but in control. Kane walked forward carefully. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I thought I was the last of them," she said softly. "But now I know. I am what they became." Kane looked around at the station, the drones, the dead silence from the enemy. "You're not a survivor," he said. "You're the return." Rel turned to face the enemy fleet. She spoke a single phrase, no louder. Then a whisper, but every ship heard it. "You had your chance." And then she lowered her hand. Behind her, the station's ancient defense systems activated fully. Cannons formed from metal once buried. Lasers brighter than suns lit the darkness. But Rel didn't watch. She walked back toward Kane. And as the enemy fleet exploded behind her, one ship at a time, she simply asked, "Is there still a place for me in your world?" Kane didn't answer with words. He just opened the ship door and nodded. She stepped inside, and the station, once a grave, faded into the distance, leaving only echoes behind. But now, those echoes had a voice, and the galaxy could no longer pretend it didn't hear. The sky above the central trade world was calm. Blue clouds drifted slowly over silver towers. Shuttles passed between buildings. People walked below, and in the heart of the city, leaders laughed. They thought it was over. They thought she was gone, a lost girl from a lost race, a story they could bury again. But they were wrong. At exactly 0 hour, the sky changed. A single ship entered orbit, not large, not fancy, just quiet. From the ground, it looked like a shadow from space. It looked like a warning. Inside that ship, Rel stood by the window. Kane stood beside her. Silent, she wore no armor, no weapons, only a long gray robe, one her mother once wore, around her wrist. The last drone hovered like a guardian. "Are you ready?" Kane asked. Rel didn't blink. "They were ready to watch me die," she said. "They should be ready to hear me speak." Below, on the steps of the great council hall, a crowd had gathered. Reporters, guards, nobles, soldiers. They came to see the strange ship, but they didn't expect who stepped out of it. Rel walked alone. No chains, no guards. Just her steps, echoing across the marble floor. Some of the crowd laughed, some stared in silence. But when she reached the top of the stairs and raised her head, they stopped. Her eyes, glowing just faintly, met theirs, and her voice, soft and calm, filled the plaza without speakers. "You laughed when I begged," she said. "You clapped while I cried. But now I carry not fear, I carry truth." Gasps spread through the crowd. The air itself seemed heavier. A screen above the hall turned on, without warning, without permission. The broadcast began, the one from Echo Station, the truth. The old war, the lies, the betrayal, and the faces of those who hid it all. Panic rippled through the council chamber. Leaders tried to shut it down, but their voices were drowned by their own history. Rel took a deep breath. "I'm not here to kill you," she said. "I'm here to remind you. You didn't break me. You revealed me." Soldiers raised weapons, but their guns jammed. Drones around the city powered down. Even the council AI refused to obey orders. And behind Rel, the human ship opened again. Kane stepped out, blaster holstered, hands empty. He walked to her side and looked at the crowd. "Earth remembers, too," he said. "You tried to keep us small, but you forgot what humans do best. We adapt." People began to kneel, not out of fear, but because they saw something real, something they were told to forget. Not power, not magic, just the truth, pure, painful, undeniable truth. In that truth, they saw her not as a child, not as a weapon, but as the voice they silenced too long. Rel looked at Kane. "Do you think it's over?" she asked. He shook his head. "No," he said, "but it's finally starting." A new message began broadcasting from the ship, not just to this planet, but across every system, to rebels, to scholars, to children, to the forgotten, the erased, the survivors, and it said one simple thing: "We remember you." Rel turned back to the crowd, and in the silence that followed, not a single being laughed.